Hi there, David Harper here, and I'm going to show you 3 things that make this rather lovely Rolex Bi Metal Submariner rare. And you know, when you're selling anything, and I'm going to use this as a perfect example, you've got to look for the rarity. Now, of course, a Rolex Submariner is relatively rare anyway, but if it's going to go in the market like this one is, I'm going to sell it for a client, you are going to find some competition. So you've got to find what makes the product you're selling, and in this case a Rolex Submariner, different to those other items on the market. And this is rare for 3 reasons. Reason number 1, this is what we call a full set Rolex. So we have, I'm going to put the Rolex down for a second, the outer box original from the factory, the inner box original from the factory, so that's leather and wood, absolutely gorgeous, including all the fitments, even tissue paper. Now work with me on this because these are all good signs. We've got documentation with all the serial numbers that match the watch, which was made in 2002. Then we've got Rolex brochures, we've got service manuals, service receipt, swing tags, goes on forever, extra links in the original little plastic packaging, more service information, brochures, blinking Nora's, service receipts, so I can tell you from Rolex, actually direct. I mean, you know, I use specialist watch services all of the time because I know Rolex are an absolute fortune, so I can get it done for probably a third of the price from Rolex. But it's always a jolly good sign when you see Rolex documentation proving that this Submariner was serviced by the factory in 2005, and there's another brochure as well. So that's what you refer to as a full set. So it's got all the documentation that this watch came with almost 20 years ago, which is a great sign. Now, I've got to tell you, I've sold hundreds of top-end watches without the paperwork. It's not a problem. It's just that when they do have all the boxes and paperwork, it's a really nice thing. It's like having a classic car with a full service history as opposed to the same model at the same price with no service history. And again, these things are always indicators that an item has been well looked after. So that is rarity point number 1, and rarity point number 2 is connected to the first. You're going to have to believe me, but take a look at this watch, 20 years old, and it has been so well cared for. It's unbelievable. Again, compare these things to cars. You know, a 20-year-old Mercedes SL that's been really well cared for is a very different car to a Mercedes SL that's been thrashed to within an inch of its life. And I've had Submariners, I've handled them and seen them before, and they've been blown up, basically blown up, right? They're just completely beaten up. This one is tight. Look at that strap. If you know your Rolex watches, you know that is a good tight strap. So condition is fabulous. Point number 3 is the model itself. So it's not just a Rolex Submariner Bi Metal. So you've got a completely steel case here with 18 karat solid gold running through it. That's the Bi Metal. It's not just that. Take a look at the face. That's a factory face, not a later addition. It's diamond set on the champagne face with the lovely standard markers. That's rare. Now, it's not everybody's cup of tea. I get that, but I love watches that are not everybody's cup of tea because there's not that very many of them on the market. So when this was new back in 2002, it was a very expensive Rolex Bi Metal Submariner because of the factory diamond set face. So these are the 3 big differences that make this particular Rolex Submariner now on the market for a client different to every other Submariner on the market. And finally, always just look for the little things that make all of the difference. look at the back of the watch. You can still see the factory sticker that was placed on that watch when it was last serviced 5 years or so ago at Rolex. So it's obviously, I know, been owned by a collector of watches, somebody who hasn't worn this watch every day, and they have cared for it to within an inch of its life. So there you go. So all of those tips really apply to absolutely anything you're selling, whether it be a Rolex or anything else. Always look out for what makes whatever you're selling different to your competitors. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed looking at this watch. I've enjoyed it. I've had it for a day. It'll be going back tomorrow, and all I've got to do now is photograph it, give it a quick buff up, and get it for sale. So I'm David Harper. Thanks for watching. Until next time, cheerio.